SBA loan or a bank loan, personal credit, personal savings. There are stories of many, many founders who have maxed out their credit cards in starting their business. So it can be challenging to find loans if you don't have property or some sort of collateral to put up against it. I can tell you though, from my personal experience, that if you do put your house up as collateral for an SBA loan and you pay it off faster than what is expected, you get a great credit rating. So there's that. Other means of finding funding are friends and family. They are often your first source beyond yourself to invest in your startup. You've heard stories of the uncle who gives the kid $2,000 to make a business and somehow he makes millions of dollars out of it. That is not common. Don't expect that to happen unless you do have a rich uncle already. It's hard to adopt them. All right, then we have venture capital, angel investors, banks, and crowdfunding. So we're gonna talk a little bit about each one of these. Crowdfunding is hard. It sounds like it's really easy, but it's hard. The different platforms have different requirements, and some of them will not let you have the money that you've raised if you haven't hit your target. So it's all like paper money. It's not real until you get there. So before you engage with any sort of crowdfunding platform, be sure you understand all the rules that are associated with it. A lot of them are going to take a big percentage too. So you have to be careful about that. And you should know that if you're doing crowdfunding, you can't go out for venture capital or angel investors because there are rules set by the SEC for those types of funding mechanisms that conflict with what happens on crowdfunding. So that is another little gotcha that you should be aware of. Once your crowdfunding is over, then going to angels and VCs is fine. If it's an individual angel, there's not a lot of rules around that. But the problem with the crowdfunding is you're putting in public what you're raising and what your terms are. And so you're making a public offering. Whereas when you're raising venture or certain kinds of angel funds, they have very specific rules about only speaking to accredited investors. And that has a very specific definition. And you can be in violation if you are soliciting money from people who are not accredited investors. So those two things should be kind of separate, or at least learn enough about them so that you understand. So angel investors are individual people who will invest in companies. We have an angel group called Angel NV. We have another fund called the 1864 Fund. Oh, here we go. So Angel NV is one of our mechanisms where we teach people how to invest in startups. So they do have to be accredited investors. And then we bring together a bunch of companies and we vet through them, and then we listen to pitches and they vote. It's very egalitarian, and we get to 6 or 7 finalists. This year we had 7. And then we start the whole process of due diligence. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So after the due diligence, then the angels are asked to vote on which one they want to invest their $200,000 in. So that's an angel investing fund. It's a conference fund. And so it is regulated by the SEC. And so we do have to follow some rules. Fund NV and the 1864 Fund, they are also regulated. And the thesis, and we'll talk about that too, if you're going to go and approach investors, you need to understand what their thesis is. Their thesis will say what type of business they may invest in. It will say the size of the business, like are they making investments very early, or are they making later round investments that are bigger? So each firm will have its own thesis, its own little niche that it tries to fit into. And so if you are a consumer packaged goods company and you approach a company that only invests in software as a service companies, you're going to get rejected. And it's nothing about your company or your idea. It's just that they don't invest in that type of company. So it really pays to do your research if you are going out for investment, to understand who who is likely to be an investor in your type of business. So venture capital is usually larger rounds. So Fund NV is our little round. It's pre-seed. So that's kind of right when you're getting the business going and maybe you've got some sales. So that's before the seed round. 1864 is a seed stage fund. And so our goal in getting you into the Fund NV fund is to grow your sales. It's part of our accelerator, grow your sales, so that you can then go out for seed level funding. And so the idea is to create funds, our idea anyways, to create funds that will help you every step of the way. And then when you get to the larger, the A round comes after the seed round. Then you might be dealing with a California VC group or some other New York, a bigger VC group. So once you get into the A round, things change completely. You've probably got hundreds of millions in sales, and then you're just going to keep going and until you either get acquired or you go public. So fun times. So the angels come, and there's different flavors of angels too. So there are angel groups that have a specific bias. Like there's one called the, well, it's in the Bay Area, and they do biotech. I think it's called the something life sciences. And so they are made up of a group of people who know and came from pharmaceutical companies and medical device companies. And so that's their thing. They have expertise in it. They can see when something's new and has the potential to really grow. And so that they focus on that. There are different sorts of group. There's another group around here called Sierra Angels. And in that case, they'll bring companies in to pitch, but each angel in the group makes his own decision whether he's going to invest in the pitches that he hears. There are some angel groups, like there's one in the East, like Westchester Angels. They make their members invest in a fund, but they also have the capacity to invest individually. And so there are rules around like, well, if 4 angels invest, then the fund will also invest. And so it's a way to increase the investment or the stake that they have in the company. And then there's just the individual angels, somebody that you know who's wealthy, and maybe they come from gaming around here. That's a good possibility. And so they may be interested in their niche that they understand, and they could write you the check for $50,000 or $100,000. And then you only have one person that you're beholden to. Whereas if you invest with a group, then you're reporting to a lot of people. So it depends on how you want to go. It also depends if they're interested in investing in you. All right. When making changes, a good idea is to make realistic changes to the assumptions in the model one at a time to see their impact on the bottom line. So this is a good idea anytime you're changing your business. Don't change a bunch of things at once, because if you have success, which is the thing that you need to do more of? You won't know. So evolve slowly, but do evolve. All right, these are the different life cycle stages. So when you're at the concept stage, you're still working on it. You're probably self-funded. You may not even have that many expenses if you're still trying to build a prototype. I told you there's a maker space here. So if you are trying to build a prototype, you can get trained up by the gals here and then use a 3D printer to make a prototype and then take that out for more customer validation. You could possibly get angel funding. You could possibly show or describe your business to some companies, and if they're interested, they may give you a letter of intent. That means that if you build it, they will not just come, they'll buy. Coming is not the same thing as buying. So when you get your letters of intent, that is a good thing. It can be difficult though. If you have a consumer packaged good and you go to Walmart or another Whole Foods, a large chain, it can be difficult to get them to back up their letter of intent. They can just say that they're going to do a trial. So, and that often happens with Whole Foods. They'll try it in a little geographic area and see if the product sells, and then they may move out to more areas. That also happens with Target. Hi, Fernando. So, concept, startup, very early stage, you're probably going to be on your own. It's very difficult with a software type of product to get other people to pay you to develop it. So with a software product, you're better off eating the ramen and developing something that works, getting some people excited about it and using it, and having them tell their friends to use it. And if you can show that people are using it and that you may be able to convert them from a free version to a paid version, then it's going to be easier to find funding. So as an investor, we're always looking for traction. Traction is sales. And the more traction you have, or the quicker it's growing, the more interested they're going to be. So for early stage businesses, you may get private lenders, pre-seed investors, the banks. Again, I think banks actually are really hard. Until you have money, banks don't want to give you money. And then in the growth stage, that's when you can go to venture capitalists. And what a venture capitalist for an A round or a B round, they want to see that you have a good trend of sales, that your customer base is growing, and they want to give you money to grow exponentially. They just want you to scale. So they want to see that there's already been a good trend of sales and increasing income. And then they'll throw money or throw fire on the gas on the fire to make you grow really fast. Yes.
So the trend, how long is the trend?
Well, the faster the trend, the more compressed it is, the more that a venture capitalist will like it, like, you know, growing like wildfire. I saw a deck recently where the guy had been in business for like 8 years and had very slow growth. That's not compelling. You know, if you can show growth in 2 to 5 years, I would say even less than that. You can show good growth, yeah, in under 2 years. Yeah, but it depends on like what your growth looks like. Everything depends. Okay, and then as the business is maturing, then you can get lines of credit. Another thing to consider, which is not mentioned here, is something called revenue-based financing. And so if you have a company where you've got a pretty steady income, you've got some steady customers, and you just need a goose of an influx of capital to expand, to maybe open a second location if you're a restaurant, then revenue-based financing is a good way to go because you're not giving away any equity. Okay, you have a guaranteed rate of return for the investor, so it's 2 or 3x. It's over a period of time. They're going to give you a little bit of a grace period, and it's going to be a percentage of what your regular sales are, but it's revenue-based. So they're going to suck out a percentage of your sales every month. They have like the first right to your sales income, but it's revenue-based, so it's the percentage. So if your sales are really great, it's going to hurt a little less. They're going to take more, but you will have made more. So it's the same percentage, and you're going to pay it back in a certain period of time, and they know what their return is going to be. And so it's something that's pretty attractive for older investors. So when you're an angel investor, you're looking at a 7 to 10 year timeline. So once you get to be about 70 or 75, it's like that's a long time to wait. And you don't want to saddle your kids with this unknown entity that could go to zero or that could make them a lot of money, and then what do they do with it? So revenue-based financing is a really nice vehicle for an older investor who knows he's going to get a set amount of return in 2 to 3 years. So that is another interesting thing. We don't have any revenue-based funds here in Nevada. It's something I would like to work on. Yes, sir.
What are typical
Oh, please.
What are typical rates of return
So
expected? Like 10%, 15% revenue ballpark
for different,
for that?
oh, it's just 2x or 3x. So whatever the investment is, if they invest 300,000, they're going to go to 600 or maybe 900,000.
Okay. Well,
So
over a term, you said.
it's over a term, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. On the other hand, when you're working with VCs, they expect a much higher rate of return and not like percentages like X, like 30X or 40X. Okay. And then I don't want to talk about this because I'm not an expert in it. Jeff could talk all day. But the very early stage investor who's an angel is looking at the highest multiple return because he's going to be diluted along the way. And so for the founder, when we do have a calculator on our website, for the founder, it's good to like play around with that calculator to figure out what your sales have to be before you get to an exit that will give those angels what they're looking for. And it also has to do with your total addressable market and your available market. So they're looking at a percentage of the available market that you have to get in order to get to that sales figure and that exit. So it's an interesting interplay of numbers. And they're bigger numbers than most founders expect. All right, let's move on. All right, so when you are looking for funding, how much do you need? So it depends on what you're trying to do. If you've been very good about figuring out what your SOM is, you're making your projections, you know what your next market's going to be, then you should have a realistic view of what you need. And there are different people who say, okay, you should ask for twice what you think you need. But that can get you into trouble later because then you've taken on more than what you really needed. And so if that money is just sitting there, that's not good. It sometimes tempts founders to, I see there's a message here. Oh, I think there's somebody online has a question. It tempts founders to spend more money because they have more money, and that's not always good. You can get into a pattern of overspending. Good.
Hi, Rachel. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question in regards to a return for an investor. What is that average return time for an investor? When does it start getting ugly when the investor's like, well, that's too long, that's taking too long to get my money back? What's the average time for an investor to want their money back? 3 years, 5 years?
It's 7 to 10 years.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so that's how long it takes for an exit, usually an acquisition. IPOs are less common, but yeah, mostly it's an acquisition that happens. And so if you're developing a product that is going to enhance what Google is doing, and as you're building your business, these are things that you can think about. Who are likely acquirers? Who is my goal? Like if I'm doing a software thing, then maybe it's Google, maybe it's Microsoft. A lot of times these big companies, Salesforce, they'll buy a smaller company that has a product they can fit easily into their product offering already. And if you're one of the founders, then they may give you these golden handcuffs where you have to work for them for 2 years to smooth the transition and bring all the customers in that you had. But sometimes they just buy products and kill them because they don't want you to compete. But hey, you can move on to your next idea. All right, so you're making your projections, and I would say you should only go for what you need. When you're fundraising, it is all-consuming. It's really hard to run your business and fundraise at the same time. And so you want to make sure that if you have a co-founder, that you guys know how you're going to deal with the situation and who's the primary face for the investors, who's going to be out there dealing with them all the time, and who's going to make sure that the home fires stay burning, that the business doesn't just like collapse because all the attention is on things other than the business. So use of funds. So the investors are going to want to see what you intend to use the funds for. Should be reasonable. And in a very early stage company, investors are not too keen on paying salaries. They want you to develop the product and they want you to market the product. So that's just something. R&D, that continues in inventory. Of course, you need to be able to have something to sell something. Cost of money. Money is not free. And Some of the investment vehicles that you may run into can have little gotchas in them. And so you do want to check with a banker or an attorney. A lot of times attorneys don't know startup business. So be careful about that. Let's see. Consequences. You may have personal guarantees. You may run up your credit card debt. Variable rate hikes. Well, that would be for bank loans. Yeah. We saw one situation where there was a fellow who was a seasoned and well-known local to the location, angel investor, and he liked to do convertible notes. And so the way a convertible note usually works, it's like a loan. It converts to stock at some point. And it's usually a term, like 2 years, and there's an interest rate. This angel investor actually collected the interest every month, and usually that doesn't happen. Usually the interest is just added on to the principal at the end, and so they get more stock without having to put the burden of constantly paying on the founder when he's just starting up. And so the company actually had to declare bankruptcy because of this convertible note. So please do, if you get involved in these things, please do check with somebody. And you're welcome to call us. We're not experts, but on the face of it, like Jeff or Devin, our fun guys, they can say that doesn't sound like a good deal. And then we'll refer you to an actual attorney or somebody who can help you. So, and I wish this fellow had done that. We saw another situation, a really interesting company that was doing an insurance product. It was new, it was different. And his family put a ratchet into the money that they were giving him. So the terms that you get early on, they're never going to get worse for the investors than that. And so if you have somebody who's very predatory in the early part of it, you may have screwed yourself out of any other future financing, as this guy did. So it was a shame. All right, funding sources, bootstrapping. That's when you grow slower and you just reinvest into your business. So you've paid for everything, you're letting the business grow itself. If you're able to do that, then that may be, if you want to have a little bit faster growth, look into that revenue-based financing, because they're not going to take the equity. You're still going to own it. Debt.
Huh? Oh, no, that's okay. We have a few questions online, Maggie. When you're done, I'll.
Oh, well, I just started this slide. We can do those questions.
Okay. So Kevin online is asking, thank you, Fernando. Kevin online is asking, about 6 years ago, I released a mobile app similar to the project I'm working on now that saw significant traction. I was able to sign up close to 1,000 users with close to zero in marketing spend. Would that be something to include in the current pitch deck? How could I use that bit if the pique the interest of any, or to pique the interest of any possible investors?
I would say 6 years ago, the online marketplace was completely different from where it is now. So I don't know how relevant that would be. It wouldn't hurt to say it, but I don't know that that in itself would sway an investor. Depends on what your current product is.
Okay, and then another question online. How much does grants actually help from a funding point of view? Is it worth applying for grants?
So grants are non-dilutive. And so it's good. If you can get a non-dilutive grant, do it. There are reporting requirements, but they're usually not too onerous. If you can get through the application process, you can get through the reporting process. So there are SBIR grants, which are Small Business Innovation Research grants. There are 11 agencies of the federal government that offer these grants. Usually a phase one is about $50,000. But if you get a phase one, then you're able to apply for a phase two. And if you get approved by one agency in a phase one, then you are open to getting that phase two in any other agency. So the different agencies, and we did a little thing on this last October, but the different agencies have different windows when they have applications. And so Like the National Science Foundation is open almost all the time. DOE does it once or twice a year. I don't have the list in front of me. But if you go to SBIR.gov, they do have kind of the calendar of the different agencies, even the Department of Agriculture, USDA, and Health and Human Services. They have grants as well. So it would surprise you what the different agencies are that offer those grants. So, and if you're in the medical or pharma field, they're very common to do that, to get those types of grants. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, if you find a local grant or a grant that's focused on underserved founders, or say it's focused on a particular industry, and you find those grants, I would say go for it. You've got really nothing to lose by applying. You do need to have a few things in place, and most of these grants will tell you that. So you have to have an employer identification number. You have to have a unique entity identifier, which you get from SAM, SAM.gov. SAM stands for something for award management, system for award management. So that's SAM.gov. So you can get your UEI even if you never get a grant. You can get that number and have it. They'll give you a CAGE number. I don't know what that one stands for, but it's a unique identifier too. It has something to do with the industry that you're in. And then you sign up with another website called grants.gov, and that's where you can search for all of these different grants that come out, and you can even sign up for an email. I get a daily email from grants.gov on the grants that have opened. So yes, grants are hard, but they're worth it if you get them. Oh gosh.
The question is it better to have a grant writer?
Grant writers, if you can find a good grant writer, then sure, they're great. How many good grant writers have I run into? Well, there's me and Cara, and I don't know anybody else. Yeah.
Her and Cara, yeah. No, it's, trust me. It's insane. She speaks the truth.
Yeah.
We've actually looked into hiring some grant writers that didn't turn out so well too, that came with nice resumes, right?
We've not hired grant writers.
Didn't we look at some resumes, I think, but it ended up you and Cara had more experience in it at the end of the day anyways.
There are people who tout themselves like Nevada Grant Lab. I wouldn't use them. I'm being recorded. So
should we edit that out?
Okay. So debt costs money. Equity, you're giving away part of your business. So this is not well understood by a lot of first-time founders, like how much do I give away and what's reasonable. And if you start down the path where you're giving away equity, you're going to give away equity. Okay. Craig Macy did a talk last month or so, and he showed that once you start down that path, that the founder ends up with a really small percentage. But if you've gotten that far where you only have 2 or 3% left, then it's likely that your business is worth a lot. And so your 2 or 3% is going to be a huge amount of money, where it sounds like a really small percentage. So again, we're happy to help you. Let's see, convertible debt. This is where it's a loan, but it converts into equity. I was just talking about that, convertible notes. Crowdfunding, told you about that too, be careful. Private placement. I don't know what the hell that means. Whenever we are doing a deal memo for investment in one of the companies that we're working with, it's called a private placement memorandum or a deal memo. And so it is an equity type of funding. But apparently you can do that with debt and convertible notes too. Okay. Impact investing. So these are investors who have a particular thesis, not about the business type itself. Well, it might be about but it could be about the founder. And so there are investors that are focused on helping Asian Americans and people that are focused on environmental impacts or where you're helping children. So there are these different impact investing groups, and that's part of their thesis. So, and there are some that are just about women too. I think there's one called Estella's. It's all about women. So, all right, what do we have here? Oh, the stages.
Question.
Yes, Ron, hi.
Hi, Ron. Oh, thank you.
Ron knows to wait for the microphone.
Family offices.
So family offices, yes, they would be like angels. Some of the family offices, like the Fertitta family, are huge. And so we've tried to court the Fertittas to join in some of our funds, and the amounts are too small. So some family offices are really large, and they have professional management, and those are the people you're going to talk to, the professional managers. But some family offices are smaller, and they would invest in our types of funds. So there is a huge range in that group. Okay. Let's see, the seed and startup stage, yeah, they're angel or pre-seed funds. I disagree that very few angel deals are done above $1 million, because if the angels band together, there's one called the Band of Angels in the Bay Area, they can invest more than $1 million. I think we raised, Cara, if you're online, maybe you know, how much did we raise for TensorWave? I think it was 3 million. So, and that's just with our syndicate, our network of people for that particular deal. It was an unusual deal though. So 1.5 million to 4 million. Yeah, 4 million is like seed stage and below. And above that, you start getting into these A rounds, B rounds, C rounds. Points to ponder. Search for banks and bankers that target businesses like yours. So this is true about angel investors and venture capitalists too. Understand who you're approaching and if they're likely to invest in your business, or if there's just not a fit. And it has nothing to do, as I said, with what your business is. It's just not what they invest in. You should stalk them. You should know who your audience is. If you've identified a likely investor, then you should learn what you can about them, and you should tailor your pitch deck to them. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So if you get the opportunity to present to them, then if you do a little stalking, you'll know whether they want you to get right to the point, you know, no niceties, no jibber jabber, go right into your pitch presentation. Make sure you cover certain things. That's where it really pays to do the individual research on who you're asking to put money into your business, even if it's a banker. So if it's a banker, you can ask around for referrals for other people that they have invested in, and then see from the other side, from the person who's been invested in, how they like working with that banker or that investment group. Venture capitalists have a really bad reputation for listening to pitches and then crickets, then not even getting back to you, not even a thank you, not no, we're not interested, no, we're not interested at this time, but maybe later, or yes. If it's a yes, you'll hear from them. But if it's any of those other things, you may not hear from them, and they really do have a bad rap for not getting back in touch with you. Open a business account where you do personal banking. Okay, yeah, you could do that. It's funny because it seems like banks don't even want to have personal relationships with their customers anymore. So I don't know if that's going to help you or not. With the SBA, we have SBDC offices, and a lot of the officers at the SBDC have developed relationships with SBA lending banks. And if you find a good person, I knew a great person who was up in the north, and he would find, like, he had a bank in Florida that he liked to do business with. So he knew who would help what kind of business, and he was really good at going after it. I don't know who that person is down here, sorry. But I hope there is one. Yes, Ron? Oh, please.
There about 4 or 5 days ago, there was a big announcement about the SBA launching a new lending program to make it easier for business people. A $5 million line of credit was mentioned. I was wondering, do you have somebody on staff, or is there some place on the website that sort of tracks, or maybe you do sort of track these kinds of new things that are announced and coming out, and specifically, have you heard about that new program?
I think I read about it because it does sound familiar, but I don't track that stuff. I mean, we have interns that we can ask to find that information. On the other hand, last week I saw a grant. It was for women, and I posted it in Incubate Vegas. And that was from, I think, a big company that was offering those things, but it was just for women. Actually, it was just for Black women. So if we find things like that, we'll try to make that information available. We also usually let people know when Y Combinator has their application window open. They do 2 batches per year, a summer and a winter, and they have about a 6-week window where you can apply. And that application it's a little bit lengthy, and you have to make a video, but it's not too bad. It's fun. Yeah, so the SBA, the new stuff, I would wonder what the rules are for that. Like, who are they targeting with that? So that's, it's just part of your due diligence, is figuring out what they need and if you meet that qualification. Okay. Oh, here we are. Before the meeting, stock them. How much you need, by when, how funds will be used. Okay. How and when funds will be repaid. Okay. A written business plan with completed financial projections. Okay. All right. So the SBA, they like the business plans. Today's business plan is not the same thing as it was 15 or 20 years ago. It's much more simple. In a lot of cases, a pitch deck will suffice. So it depends on which institution you're talking to about how detailed a business plan needs to be. A lot of times you can get away with just an executive summary. And then if you have spreadsheets with projections and costs and things like that, that's going to get you most of the way there. But we're going to talk about what we do for due diligence, because that's not the only thing. Okay, and financial statements, you'll need those too. All right, so due diligence. Due diligence is the research part after you guys get a term sheet. So we're interested in investing in you. And you probably have set the terms yourself. There's a certain vehicle that you're looking for, whether it's a convertible note or it's a SAFE. A SAFE is a simple agreement for future equity. And the SAFE is good because you don't have to put a valuation on your company. You cap it so that those investors know that if you find funding at the next level, that they are buying a certain percentage at that cap. And they may get a discount against the cap. So you will learn about these different terms. I actually didn't put the book in here, but everybody got a pen? The book called Venture Deals. Venture Deals by Brad Feld, F-E-L-D, and some other guy, Mendelsohn maybe? He wrote it with another guy. And if you read that book and absorb it, so you may have to read it several times, you will know more than most attorneys about equity deals. And that's where you'll learn about the full ratchet, which is the thing that killed that insurance company. Or maybe you had 2X preference. There's lots of terms you need to understand. But so let's say that we understand what you're looking for, the amount of money, and what your evaluation is. Now we're going to actually dig into your company. We're going to do due diligence. And so I've included on this slide and 2 more, some of the things that you need to have your hands on to provide to a potential investor. So your basic due diligence, these are just like a Gus profile you may or may not need. There is another company called DocSend, and DocSend is a company where you have a repository for all of these documents, and you can share it with potential investors. So there are a lot of software solutions that make this easier, but getting your documentation together in the first place, not easy. So all of that stuff, and then your formation documents, your articles of incorporation or LLC, who are members of your LLC, what are the percentages, do you have articles of incorporation and bylaws? If you have patents, you're definitely going to want to have them scanned and available. A cap table is a capitalization table. That's the people who have invested in your company. So when you were first starting out, you had that rich uncle and he gave you $25,000. So he should be in a spreadsheet with Uncle Jed, 25K. Okay, and then if Aunt Mildred gave you $5,000, she's got to be on there too. So the cap table, one of the reasons that we like Angel NV is because that's usually 50 to 55 investors, but it's one line item on the cap table because it's called Angel NV. So a special purpose vehicle was created to make that investment. And so we who are administering it on the other end, we know the 52 people that we have to give reports to, but the founder only has to report to us, and then we report to the rest. So cap table, co-founders, contact information, percentages of ownership. And then these things are sort of like, oops, sorry. The 3 to 5 word summary, the 100-word executive summary, the longer executive summary, these should be mirrored in different levels of decks, pitch decks. The 1-minute pitch, the 2-minute pitch, the 7-minute pitch. So you should be developing these things. All right, here's more. Oh, I started mentioning last time. Org chart, shareholder list, your cap table, all stock options, warrants, and related agreements. The unaudited financial statements. We don't expect a really early company to have audited financial statements. Your debt, your financial projections, assets that you own, your locations, your employees. If you have a stock option plan, pool for those stock options, a lot of times early companies will not have done that yet. So their first round of investors may say, okay, you need to set aside a certain percentage of your stock for that stock option pool. So you want to get that going. Yes, litigation list. If you've ever been sued, if you've ever failed in a different company, personal resumes. I don't know if that's on here yet. It's on the other one? Okay. Any agreements you have, if you do have letters of intent from potential customers, they'll want to see everything. They'll want to understand the business almost as well as you do. And so it's just a lot of documentation that needs to be in there. You can give them a list of competitors. I would caution you to be careful with this, because if you give them a list of competitors, even in a pitch deck, and you have somehow overlooked your main competitor, they're going to wonder about how much you know your industry, or if you're just trying to fool them. So be thorough when you're doing your customer list. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, before we invest, if we hear a pitch and we're interested, the first thing we're going to do is have our interns do market research and competitor research, just to see how it compares with what the founder presented. Okay. And then other things too, service agreements, contracts, returns, all this stuff. So, and it's great to have copies of all your publicity. So you guys should be keeping track of that. If you get a mention in anything, if it's a quick thing on the news, whatever, you want to keep a record of all that stuff. What's also fun just for you as founders is if you have a logo when you start and you change it, it's just good to have a history of the different things that you've done and how your business evolves. It's fun to look back on. All right, let me share with you This, I think, is pretty much the end of, oh. All right, so presenting your business. This is pretty much what we covered when we were talking about pitch decks last week. These are the different topics, the different slides that you should have. And then when you're presenting it in a 10-minute pitch, this is the amount of time that you should spend on each little topic. Let's see, okay. People, we're taking pictures of that. But what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to exit out of this and show you the due diligence questionnaire that we send to our finalist companies for Angel NV. I think I'm going to exit out of here. Okay, and come over to,
Holy crap, Maggie, could you have more windows open?
yeah, I could. Just saying. So I'll make this big. So I don't have this much crap. Okay. All right, so this due diligence process for us for Angel NV has to be done in about 4 or 5 weeks. It's really fast. And here we go with some of these questions. Okay, and just so you know, you can't see the bottom, or can you see the bottom of my thing? 28 pages long. And it's 28 pages without the text in the form fields. Does the company have an option plan? What's the size of the option pool? What's the current size of the board of directors? Who's on the board of directors? Are the board of directors investors? Are they getting stock? Who's legal counsel? Company growth. Top 3 to 5 milestones critical to the company's success. Okay, so that wasn't included in any of the other stuff that I showed you. This is a really key question. And we also want to know what the big risks are. 3 to 5 risks for the company's success. Previous financing rounds, we need to understand that. How many more rounds do you think you're going to need before an exit? What's your exit plan? What are your deal terms this time, right now? Legal stuff. Have you ever been involved in any litigation? Okay, and then please explain in detail if the answer is yes, any of these things. So there's more questions. And then when we go to the next section, you're going to see that there is a passel of documentation that's requested too. Business plan, stock option plan, biographies, more documents, press releases, fully diluted cap table, stock options. These are just documents we want to have in your deal room. Okay, now we're going to talk about the technology, the product, the service, IP. See, lots of questions. What regulatory hurdles do you have to jump through or over? So FDA stuff that's worse. Okay, so here are some more documents related to IP. In licensing, out licensing, claims of infringement. Have you had to prosecute? Now we talk about marketing. Who's the main marketing person? How much of the funds will be used for sales and marketing? How do you distribute your product? What's your competitive landscape? Do you have a plan to build a sales force, or are you going to have hired channels? Customers. One of our first questions that we ask in an application is like, what's your sales for the last 3 months? Customer support. Do you have customer support? It's not something that most companies have to start with. All right, go to market plan. Here we go. Other marketing documentation. And then the finance questions. Okay, everybody's expecting that the finance stuff is going to be hard. There's a lot of it, but there's all that other stuff too. Does the company have enough cash?
Rachel is asking if this document will be available on Canva or
Well,
Canvas.
it's not currently, but if we can add it. Is it, you guys think it would be worthwhile? Okay.
There was an astounding yes, so
Okay, and
It will be.
here are the documents that they're looking for that have to do with financials. And so that's 28 pages without anything in it. And then all of these attached documents. So I didn't want to really, intimidate or anything, but due diligence is hard. To get it done in 5 weeks is really fast. And so when you guys are saying, okay, well, how long is it going to take me to raise money? You get a term sheet, you think you're going to get money in a week or two. That's not going to happen. No, they're going to go through this sort of due diligence process. And 5 weeks is fast. 2 to 3 months is not unheard of. And things have dragged out longer than that too. Okay. All right, so that's a nice picture. Let me go back to sharing my presentation because I think I've got QR codes I need to share. Okay, yep, here we go. If you guys have not yet signed up to do demo day on Thursday or Friday, the form is still here, but you're better off writing to Cara at startupnv.org so she can give you a slot that will work with your availability right now. Because we are pretty well booked, but we can make room. So it's better to just go straight to the horse's mouth and write to Cara if you're not. But I hope you all are. Good to see you on Saturday or Friday. Yes, ma'am?
Maggie, we have a few people in the room and I think online that feel they're not completely prepared, either because they don't have funding and that's one of the things that's, has been brought up, or they don't exactly understand their TAM or SOM. Do you still encourage these individuals to pitch?
Yes, because pitching can be intimidating if you keep putting it off, then you build a fear around it. And really all you're doing is telling your story. And so did you say that they didn't have TAM, SAM, SOM?
They don't have all the research yet.
Okay.
So they're still trying to figure it out.
So do the best that you can. Because it's not a judgmental crowd. It's going to be a kind crowd, and we are not going to be investors, right? So we probably don't know what we don't know. And so you could probably snow us pretty easily on the old TAM, SAM, and SOM. I will know if you're SOM though, if you haven't done the sort of work that you need to do to make it a projection rather than making it a percentage of your SAM. Did you have a question in the back? Hang on. Hold on, girl. Hold on. Thank you.
Hello, Brenda Pu'u. My question is in regards to the librarian that we were supposed to see at UNLV. I'm having a hard time getting a hold of him. He has days that he's not in the office, and when I emailed him, my email got kicked back. So is there another email that I can get a hold of him?
All right, I will spell the email for you. The question was about Patrick Griffiths.
Yes.
Yeah. And just as the school year ended, he may be on vacation, but his email is Patrick, Patrick, Ruxana, Fernando has a question, so that was Patrick.Griffiths, Griffis, at unlv.edu. Griffis, S as in Sam, unlv.edu. Okay, Fernando.
Thank you, Maggie. Fernando Marquez speaking. I have a couple questions. What's a good example of a 3 to 5 word executive summary? Like, what have you ever heard of a good 3 to 5 word executive summary?
Okay. A 3 to 5 word executive summary. It's when you use a comparison that people will understand.
Okay. Like an analogy?
It'd be like saying it's QuickBooks for ranchers.
Okay.
Okay, so you understand that it's a financial package with a focus on ranchers. Okay, so it's one of those quick comparison things where you take something that people know and show what your twist is, what your factor is that's different.
All right. Oh, and then what was a Gust profile?
Gust is a platform. It's not as necessary now. There are different platforms where you can put yourself out there. Gust it used to be free for founders, and now they're starting to charge. But it's kind of a marketplace where they have both founders and companies and angels and investors. And so you can share information that way. So with Gust, you as the founder could put your details on there and other investors could find you. There's another one called Angel List with 2 L's, Angel List. And I don't know whether that one charges. Platform that we're using for our deals is called Dealum. And so the companies are able to apply to us and create a company profile. And I think that they have the ability to say whether it's public or not. And that's true on Gust as well. So if you are applying to a specific accelerator or angel group or investor group, you can choose to make your profile so that other people can see it. DocSend was created more for the founders to be able to have a deal room that is secure and they can share out with other people. They can block off certain parts of it if they want to. And they also have a trail so they know who's looking at their stuff. DocSend is also interesting in that they put a quarterly report together that shows which slides in a pitch deck investors are spending the most time on.
And DocSend, you said isn't the one you're using? You're using a different one?
We're using Dealum.
Dealum.
Yeah, but that's
How do you spell that?
I don't think it's DEALUM.
Oh.
But I don't believe that that is founder first. I believe it's investor first.
Well, there's the last thing I had. What is Y Combinator? Because I know it's a really multifaceted company. Y Combinator's main thing that they do.
So I'm to describe Y Combinator? Okay, Y Combinator is like the grandfather of accelerators for founders. And so they had relatively early success. They've been around for 15 or 20 years now. And they were the ones who, like Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston and always got a name with a B. I can't remember their names. There were like 4 of them. They were out of Harvard. And for a summer thing, they said, hey, what if we got a bunch of students together and helped them build a company over the summer? So that's kind of how they started. But they actually started wanting to create an angel group so they could invest in the best ideas that were coming out of this little summer camp thing. Now, Y Combinator is a Lisp function. And so Paul Graham, who has marvelous essays on all sorts of topics at their website, Y Combinator. So he was, a computer geek. So that's how they got that name.
Thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome. But they've had, let's see, Airbnb, Stripe. I don't know about Uber, but they've had some big companies come out of there. And so what's great about that, if you get in, and there was a fellow who had applied and he actually got past the first round. What's great about them is they have partners that are currently recently exited founders and founders who have started another business. So you are able to get empathy from people who know what you're going through. They've done it recently. Jeff did it years ago. But these people are more current and it's a really amazing experience. And they're not always looking for the best idea. They watch the video, they watch the product. If they like what you put in your video and in your application, they'll interview you. It's a group interview, but they're looking for a spark. Because a lot of the companies that get in actually pivot from the idea that they wrote in their application. Y Combinator, I'm talking about Y Combinator, which is like the granddaddy of accelerators.
So People are asking online if they can bring,
Family,
if
friends?
guests, yes, to
Yes,
pitch
you
day.
can bring guests. We love that. So yeah, bring your partners, bring your kids. It'll be a fun time. It'll be a very supportive time. So it won't be like your first pitch in front of a VC. All right, any
Eh.
other questions?
How long do we have mentors for? Are we having Wednesday?
No, so the mentors, I think some of the confusion that was caused today is because last week was the last week with your mentors. Now, if you feel like you need help with your deck or with your pitch, Cara and I are available through email. So, and I know, Ron, that you uploaded your deck to Fast Track. And I don't know either. I was asking Cara, I was like, how do we even get that? So what we decided to do is just allow you guys to send us your decks. Now, if your decks are big and they can get bloated really easily, then you're going to have to find your own creative way to give us a link to it so that we can take a look at it and give you some feedback.
Google Docs.
What'd you say? Google Docs. Google Docs. Yeah, if you make it into Google Slides, even if you make it in PowerPoint, you can make it in Canva and export it as a PowerPoint and then bring it into Google Docs. And then you can get, yeah, you can do Google Slides too. Yeah, some people find it easier to create in Canva. So I'm Maggie at StartUpNV and she's Cara. Yeah, either one of us. Yeah, she's gonna put them all in a folder and I will too. If you send it to me, it'll go in a folder and we'll both have a look at it. Okay, so it's only 8 minutes. There's no questions. There's just transition time. And then we'll have some food throughout the day too. Okay, but
Thinking
if you're-
about bringing the Kirkland vodka, Maggie. Thinking about bringing the Kirkland vodka.
Well, you know what? We had a little plan, Rakshana, but you've spoiled it now. So
Oh,
we're not
do
going
we?
to do it.
I'm liking this plan.
Was there a question in the back? No? No, there's no.
Nothing on
no,
Wednesday.
There's nothing
no.
on Wednesday. No.
Where did you post that women's grant?
Where did I post what?
Yes, you
It's on Slack.
on Slack.
It's on the Incubate Vegas group Slack. Maggie posted the link to that women's grant.
Oh, the women's grant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were still a few weeks left in that.
Is it all right if I just offer a little word of encouragement? The due diligence that you showed me, that is standard. I've probably raised 30 million or so, I probably only had to do that once, and it was for UNLV. The award of MBAs descended on me, and I had to do everything on that list for the smallest investment that I ever had. And so just, you have to be prepared, I think,
Yes.
for all of that. So if that's what I don't want to inflate people's expectations, but at the same time, if you find like a family office, there's big ones, the big ones probably forget about it, but there are small ones. So, like, what is a family office? It's a wealthy family that wants to put their money to some particular cause. In some cases, they might love coffee. Who knows? Right? They have different interests and different investment criteria. And so if you're out there and you're passionate about your business, I think you can find and connect with people. That's what's worked for me in many cases, that it's, if you have to be really passionate about it, but then you've got to have the substance behind it too. It can't be all sizzle. That's the steak that Maggie, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, that's, the steak that they want to see the steak, but the sizzle is what sells it, the spark and everything. But you've got to have all that. I agree entirely that all that work is necessary, but getting out in the community, and this is fantastic, this forum, this venue. So again, I really appreciate what you guys do here.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. So I do want to just say that, don't get in your own head. I think people tend to get in their own head. Don't get in your own head. One of our best pitches was a guy who was, and I think it was it was our last cohort, who was in his own head until the last minute he wasn't sure. And he had a little bit of straight stage fright. He killed it. He did probably the best. He had Clark County asking him questions and trying to figure out how to help him and everything. So don't get in your own head. Know that we're all smiling faces and we're all here to make sure that, you guys feel supported. I think we're open to providing feedback afterwards. If you email, directly, just to see maybe what our thoughts are. I don't think we're going to have a Q&A session during that time, or
No, but I actually will be taking notes.
there you go. So there you go. But
That shouldn't worry you.
no, it shouldn't, because it's feedback for later, right? It's one-on-one feedback. You guys just don't get in your own head. This is supposed to be an experience for you guys to really just break out of that shell. And I get what Maggie's saying is, the longer you hold it off, the bigger your fear is, right? Let me tell you my story. I don't drive in Vegas for that specific reason. Moved here from Canada and I was in my own head, and because I was such a nervous driver, to this day I don't drive. I will Uber everywhere, but I will not drive. I still think everybody's drunk, but that's a whole other story. But so just don't get in your own head. Sign up, do it. This is your opportunity. Know that everybody else in the room is feeling the same way you are.
All right. We'll see. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
questions? Hold on, I'm coming.
Just gonna ask, when will we all know, or whoever signed up for pitch day, know what day and what time that they're presenting?
I thought didn't Cara post that in the Slack channel?
It's in it.
Okay, you can drive me places. He just found his first customer, y'all. But it's posted on Slack. Cara did share the schedules. If you need to make a change, or if you haven't signed up yet, as Maggie has said, just reach out to Cara directly and we'll get you in. But this is your opportunity to do it in front of people that are in the same place, care about you, want to make sure that we're all successful.
All right. Good job.
Yay! So what are we talking? Alcohol, Maggie? No, I'm just kidding. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. Hopefully we'll see you Friday and Saturday.
Thanks, people online.